Okay, Rabbi Isai, Libin HaTorah. Libin HaTorah. Tonight is the Yom Huledis of the fourth Rebbe Chabad Lubavitch. His name was the Maharash Merenu Harav Reb Shmuel.
I name after him.
Oh, wow.
I born Chesia, so my father gave me that.
Oh, wow.
Born what?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the youngest son.
Tonight is Beis Year, and I born
The youngest son, but he was the one chosen to be his Mamala Mokim.
By the time of Sarah?
Yeah,
Or by the Hasidim?
in Lubavitch. Not all by all Chassidim. The brothers split. Besides for the oldest brother, all the brothers became Rebbes.
What
But they were because of the Tzemach Tzedek left a will, a tzavah, that his youngest should be a Rebbe. So there was a Bezdin after he was nifter that went through exactly what is which one of the children, how should the Yerusha be split. And it was decided based on the Tzemach Tzedek's words that the Rebbe Marash, his youngest son, is going to take over his father in Lubavitch and stay there. The other brothers, if they want, they can lead a following and be a Rebbe, but outside of Lubavitch. So the brothers picked up and they left, and they opened up their own Hasidic branches in different places. However, it didn't last for that long period of time. So by the time it came to his grandson, the Frierdiker Rebbe, they had already the grandchildren been nifter, and they didn't continue on, and they merged back into Chabad Lubavitch. So originally there was not just Chabad Lubavitch, there was Chabad Kapust, which was very large at that time. Very large was Kapuster Chassidim. They were followers. The Tzemach Tzedek had a son, one of his older sons, the Maharil Yehuda Leib, and he was a very chashuv yid, and he had his own chassidus. But he was nifter young. He was nifter a little under a year after his father.
I think 36.
I don't know the age.
They left any books?
He did not leave any svarim. He was nifter within the year after his father was nifter, like about 11 months or so. And his son took over, and under his son, Reb Shlomo Zalman of Kapust, he was a famous Rebbe, and he wrote a sefer Chassidus, Chabad Chassidus, called Magin Avis. Magin Avis, it's Chabad Chassidus, and it's Kapust. It's a famous sefer, saying
It's a Nin Shala.
yeah, and he led the Chassidus for many years, and at that point, there was Lubavitch, and there was Kapust. There were some other groups. There was one brother went to Niezhin, another one brother went to the city of Liadi. These are all cities, and but after the Kapuster was nifter, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman of Kapust, his brother took over, and his brother was, I think his first one took over was his brother was a Ratchacher. And then after he was nifter, another one took over, but he was in Babreisk. Well, Lamaisa, in the ending, they all came back to the Frierdiker time. So at one point, it wasn't just Chabad, it was Chabad Lubavitch, or Chabad Kapus. Today is only Chabad Lubavitch. But that was the Rebbe Marash was the youngest one, and he was the one who took over. He was a very hidden. He was very hidden. Before he was Rebbe, many people did not know who he was because he was very quiet about himself, and he dressed like a businessman. So he didn't know. So, but Chassidim picked up on it who he was, and that when the time came, they knew that he was the one to be the Rebbe. Anyway, so he was a Rebbe, and he was nifter, and his Yom Holedis was Beis Year, and
He also passed away.
He passed away young. I think he was 52.
So set, cool.
The Rebbe Maharash.
Oh.
Yeah. He was later years, he wasn't well. And when he was, and the doctor said it would be good for him to do things with his hands to occupy himself, his mind. So because of the pain and things, like some therapy, and he would carve wood. And in Lubavitch, the village of Lubavitch, the yeshiva, they had a big chandelier, the yeshiva that he had carved. Later on, there was a yeshiva that was by his son, and the chandelier is not around, but he also carved the table. That table sitting in the Rebbe's room in 770. The Rebbe has his desk.
The right side.
When you're facing the Rebbe's table, it's behind the Rebbe's table. The Rebbe was given it as a gift. One of the person who had somehow gotten the table, and the Rebbe was given this as a matana. He had it in his room all the years, a round table that was hand carved by the Rebbe
During
Maharash.
the Holocaust, the table went through and somehow got here.
Yeah,
The telephone of the Rebbe was on the table.
yeah.
When they brought it, it was pieces or one piece,
Well, it's a small table, like like a telephone.
and it's made out of one piece of wood. He just carved it
like
for one.
three branches, like no.
Wow,
He was so
Like-
genius. He was so genius. You know how to take
priceless.
a sewing machine apart and put it back together.
The Rebbe Maharash.
He was a genius.
Okay, so Rabbi Say, we're going to learn.
Everything in the kitchen, we
The
know
table
what's
is
going
priceless.
in.
Son of Mechin.
Also, the Chassidus he wrote, and
Maybe it was known. I don't know. I don't recall what they wrote. I don't recall what it was.
The last line.
The later years he wasn't well.
Hmm.
There is like one picture of him, but that's found in the Rebbe's library.
Mm.
But the Rebbe did not want it to be released because he said it didn't look well.
And is the Rebbe himself, or is
אז המחזור כתב את כל ההגאות בליקוטי תואר.
The last Lubavitch Rebbe was
הוא חיבר, הוא אסף 2,000 מאמרים.
yes,
כל הסוגריים, זה שלו.
והוא עצמו כתב 20
yes,
כתבים.
and he had his picture. There is a photo of his, and but they never released it
יש רק 24
because
אבל.
he didn't look well, so it wasn't a
מתי הוא
cover.
חי?
He was rather into the war.
ויצאנו אולי
He
3 שעות.
was passed away.
הוא צריך לעשות.
He passed away. It was 1883,
הוא לא היה שם.
1882 actually.
We passed war before World War I.
Yeah, 1882.
לא כמו החמלה.
Yeah, he was a great grandson of the Alter Rebbe. Great grandson of the Alter Rebbe, son of the Tzemach Tzedek. Yeah. They say the Frierdiker Rebbe looked like him. I remember that there was a time years ago that they had a newspaper that
Isn't
somehow
there-
said that they had found a picture of his. I don't know if there was any truth to that, but the picture did have similarities.
Look like him, yes.
Similarities to the Frierdiker
But
Rebbe.
isn't the Rebbe Maharash really doesn't have any pictures of him? Nobody
There is
knows
a
what
picture in the library, but the Rebbe I think didn't allow it for release because he wasn't well and he was taken. He didn't look well, and so it wasn't a covered like a picture, so never released it.
His famous word is Chatchila River. If you have to go somewhere
Yeah.
and this obstacle, just jump over. That's in life. So,
Okay, so Rabbi Isai, we are learning Hilchas Sfiras Omer, and we are holding page Taf Ches. Taf Ches is almost at the ending of the Sefer. Page Taf Ches. So we spoke last week. We started to talk about Minat Torah. You have to count both days and weeks. Because there's various psukim. One pasuk is Tisbru Chamishim Yoim, count 50 days. You have another pasuk, Shiva Shavuot, so you should count 7 weeks. The question is, how do we go about counting this? How do we combine weeks and days? There is a 3-way machlekes about this. We're going to take a look at it in Sivhei and Vav. Sivhei, we say, "Men haTorah tzarich lumis hayamim v'gam hashvoi shenemer tispa chamish yoyim ki loymer ad chamishim yoyim." V'oymer, and it says, "Shiva Shavuos tisper lach." You have to count weeks. Keitzad yispa shneim. How should you do both? Shemagia l'shiva yamim yoymer hayoyim shiva yamim shim shavua echad. It comes at the ending of the weeks. You don't just say today's 7 days. Today's 7 days and 1 week. Now, the next time you're going to mention weeks, according to this Mahalach, Shemagil Yoim Arba Asar. When it comes to 14 days, Yoimer HaYoim Arba Asar, Yoim Shem Shnei Shavuos. V'chein B'shar Kol Soif Shavua V'Shavua. And at ending of every week, you mention how many weeks it is. Le'asa Kein Le'yatzei Dei Chevasim Min HaToiro. Zivav. Aval B'yam Shem Kol Shavua. According to this opinion, the days which are in between the weeks, 8 days, 9 days, 15, right? Those days, from 8 to 13, 15 to 20. And all the other days are in between the weeks. What do you do those days? How do you count them? Some say you do not. There's no need to count weeks during the days. The days in between, on the 8th day, you don't need to mention that it is 1 week and 1 day. You mention Hayom Shemaini Yamim, and that's it. At the end of the week, you'll say Hayom Arba Asa Yom Vishnei Shavuos Shehem Shavuos. According to this opinion. That's one opinion. Only on weekends you say it. Some say the opposite. No. You always count weeks. Every single day you count weeks. How do you count the 8th day of the Omer? You don't say Hayoim Shmoini Yamin, Sheheim Shavua Echad V'Yom, which is 1 week a day. You just say Hayoim Shavua Echad V'Yom Echad. Weeks is your mode of counting. You count weeks and additional days that are in between. So when the Torah says, according to this opinion, when the Torah says you count weeks. Weeks means the entire time you're counting weeks. Every day you're counting how many weeks. The extra days, that's Tisbeh Chamishim Yom. You don't just count on the weekends, you count every day. A third opinion. Third opinion says you got to do both. Every day you got to mention the schum, the amount of days and weeks, like we do. Should say on Kegoyim b'Yimches Yomer Shmoini Yamim Sheheim Shvech Yemechem. Chein Shar Kol Yamim Tzarich Loimer Schum Kol Yamim v'Hashuos U'Minyan Hayamim Ha'Oitel. Should you say all the days and the weeks and the days which are extra over the week? Chein Espash and Minig Chol Yisrael. This is the minig from the Rishonim times already. They're recording this, and this is the minig that's spread around Klal Yisrael. Ve'ein l'shanes, we should not change this minig to go like the third opinion. So let's make it just to recap. What are the 3 opinions? Everyone agrees the Torah says you have to count weeks and days. The question is, what does that entail? The first opinion says that means that every day you mention days. Weekends, you mention how many weeks it is. You never mention weeks in middle of the week. Weeks are only mentioned at the ending. 7 days passed, you say Hayom Shavua Echad.
14 days.
14, say Hayom Arba'as, Hayom Shei Shavuos. And you actually say both, according to this opinion. You say days and
But
weeks.
you said the week first.
No, you say the days and weeks. During the week, you're just saying days, and the weekends, you say weeks. The first opinion. Second opinion is the opposite. You always count just weeks. How do you say 8? The manner of counting 8 is not saying today's 8 days. Sviras Oimer, you say today's 1 week and 1 day. That's the method of counting. That's what the Torah means by weeks and days. I counted a week, Shavua, and I count the extra day, 1 day. The second opinion. Third opinion says, like what we do, every day you should be counting both days and weeks. That's the minig ha'ilam to do. Now we're middle of Vav. The paragraph starts Umikol Mokim. Umikol Mokim, however, im ta umana ba'achas beis hasfiris rishonis. If you made a mistake and you did not do like the minig pashut, like we do, you did like one of the earlier two opinions. B'yamim sheba'emsa shvuis, during the days that are middle of the weeks, not the weekends. Ein sarech lachsav or lisper b'zman hazeh shesvirim v'divrei seifrim. Even though it's a machlokes in min haTorah, three-way machlokes,
But you can't. That's all.
but since today it's only b'derabbanan, we have no carbon ha'omer. There's no Beis Hamikdash. We have no carbon v'sfart l'chem. Yoim habiachem is carbon ha'omer. There's no yoim habiachem is carbon ha'omer. Yes, the Rambam did held it's the day that we originally brought it, so it's even Minatayr today. The Rambam held it's Minatayr today. There was another Rishon, the Raviyah held that way too, but that's minority opinion. Taisus, the Rosh, the Ran, all the other Rishonim disagree, and they hold Pa'echad, it's Midrabanan today. Since it's Midrabanan, if you made a mistake, we're okay with you relying on the first two opinions. If you went like that. Even further, you went on another level of a mistake. You did a mistake that none of the three opinions say that's okay. You did something else. What did you do? In the weekends, where you were supposed to say, today is 7 days and 1 week, instead of that, you did not mention weeks at all.
So today is 18 days. 8 days.
You just say today's
14
7 days.
Right.
Or 14
14
days.
days.
You don't mention the weeks at all. Whereas no opinion said that Yaitza. The very minimum was that weekends you mention weeks. Not during the week, but you mention weeks at the ending. Safe it. You're not mentioning weeks b'chlal. So you're not following the pasuk in the Torah, Shiva Shavuos Tisbalach. You're going to count 7 days, say 7 days, say 14 days, 21. You never mention weeks. Not during the week, not on the weekends. So this is problematic according to all opinions. However, since Svira Bizman Hazeh is Midrabanan, there is an opinion which holds that you do not need to go back today. Because Svira Sa'omer is only Zeicher L'Mikdash, you don't have to do it exactly the way it was done in the Beis HaMikdash. Im tov v'leimana el hayamim b'vad l'hiska shvuos klal yesh oimrim shein sarach las v'lisper b'zman hazeh shesvira and lezecher kiven shesafer hayamim yatsa. You did days throughout the whole thing. You were yatsa. However, the opposite, you're not yatsa. Meaning, if the whole week you didn't count, and I just did the ending of the weeks. I'm just doing Shavuos.
You can't.
Just like this one,
14,
this one made a mistake until now that he just counted days throughout. He never mentioned Shavuos. What happens? The opposite mistake is just weekends. You would think, oh, it's only Zeichel Mikdash. I did a Chelak of the mitzvah. Chelak of the mitzvah, Shiva Shavuos. I did the Shavuos, but I didn't do the Yamim. Just like we say, if you counted Yamim throughout, there's an opinion which says Yotzeh. Even though Minat Torah, if it would be Minat Torah, you wouldn't. This is Midrabanan Yotzeh, Zeichel Mikdash. So maybe if I only did Shavuos, the ending of the week, a whole week, I didn't say anything. I come to shul once a week and I say, Yoim Shiva Yamim, Ayim Arba, Ayim Shavua Echad, I'm sorry, Ayim Shnei Shavuos. And the weekends, I'm a weekend Svira guy. The whole week you don't do it. Think of Yotzeh, no one holds you Yotzeh. Why? You can't count that way. Just weekends is not a count. You have to be able to count throughout every day. Just on weekends, that's not a sphere which is Zeichel Mikdash. That's what he says here. Alon Safar Shavuos Bolvad. Shama Yem Shva Echad Shnei Shavuos Lehiskim Min HaYamim Tzach La'asav Lisper. Sheika Sfira Min HaYamim Shmin HaYam Bolvad. Yichoyel Lisper Kol Hamem Tes Yoyin. The only way to get through the 49 days every day is by counting the days as well. Alumin HaShavuos Bolvad. V'lo Yaskar Shumin Yamim Ef Shalisper Yam Shem Sefer Shavuos. You only be able to count weekends. That's a problem. Now, till now we mentioned that there's an opinion which holds that if you did not do Shavuos, you just did Yamim, you're Yoitza, because only Zeichel HaMikdash. Even though B'zman, the Beis HaMikdash Kayim, no one would hold you Yoitza, because at the beginning of Vav, we mentioned 3 opinions. All of them have to somehow fit Yamim and Shavuos together. The question is exactly how we do the Yamim and the Shavuos. But you have to have Shavuos also. But we said there's an opinion that says that today it's only the Rabbanan, it's only a Zeicher to what was. If you count Yamim throughout your Yotzeh. Now we're bringing an opinion that says no. Even though now it's only a Zeichel HaMikdash, only the Rabbanan, that doesn't give you the right to change the way it was done in that Torah. Because whatever Chazal set up, they set it up to be done the way your Yotzeh in that Torah. So you are not doing it the way in that Torah Yotzeh, you're not Yotzeh also with the Rabbanan. You can't make a bracha on the Sfira. According to this Machloikis, whether just counting days without that you change the surah Sfiras HaOmer, Yoitza. V'yesh Oimrim, Sha'af, the last 2 lines in the page, Af imana hayamim levad. The last of this verse, Shekol mashtik l'chachamim ke'ein shal Torah tiknu. Who's Allah like the Shlachos Devreim last is the bracha. We should be concerned with the second opinion, that you were not Yoitza, I just mentioned Yamim. You should do Sfiras HaOmer again, but you can't make a bracha because Safik Brachas Lahakal, the first opinion says that you were Yoitza already Sfira. So you can't say Amal bracha because you're already Yoitza. So, but the other opinion says you weren't Yoitza, so you say it again, but without a bracha.
That's why if somebody asks you after Shkia, what's today? Be careful.
Right.
Tell them what was yesterday.
Yeah. We're going to read about,
You might get it. Yeah.
we'll hear about it soon, yeah. Top of page Tov Chof Tes, Siv Zayin. In Safar Ba'osis Alabes. If you count with Alabes, Sha'amar Hayoim Yoim Aleph, or Yim Beis, Yim Gimel, Tamachlekes, Yesh Oim Shiyatzi Chivasei, Yesh Oim Shalai Yatza, that you are not Yoitze. You didn't count, you counted in numbers. It's a proud, it's a shayla. Because we have machlekes here, should say it again, but without a bracha. If you did not say today is hayoim, today is, you just said 15, 14 days of the Omer. But you didn't count the day. In Mitzvah Sfiras HaOmer, so you count the day. You announced an amount.
Right.
You announced an amount. 15 apples. 15 days of Omer. What are you counting? Or are you just announcing a number? You have to count. It's a lachsa release bracha. In this case, you made such a mistake. You got to say it again with a bracha. You did not count that very day itself. Shu oimid by. Atoyra Amar tispru chamishim yoim. Shetispra hayoim atzmai. Sheyom hayoim kach v'kach. By the way, therefore, really, if someone asks you what's tonight's Sfira, and you told them the amount without telling them hayoim today is. You can still count with a bracha. You stay away from this. We don't want to get into any mistakes of it, so we always say what yesterday's Sfira was. But I mistake, you answer, someone said to you, what's tonight? You didn't count yet. And you told them what tonight is the number without saying tonight is, still count with a bracha.
It's only day of Shmashim.
Right.
What is he
Before Ben
saying?
Ishmash is not here.
Let's say it's yesterday's here. That was 16. So he says what?
So what's tonight's Sfira? Instead of saying yesterday, he said to him 16.
He didn't say the word Ayom.
Everybody passes that way. I think if you said the correct sphere,
Without the word Ayom.
We are machmer, we're zahir, we don't even do that. Don't do. We always say esmer.
But you
but
can't have the
I
book.
think-
But I don't think in the Maisa,
I think the Veld, you say that they sphere without even Hayom, isn't it true? You do not say it.
Or you could say
does the
the
Shabura say
could say
something
the
different?
letters.
I don't recall.
you could say the letters instead of numbers today.
But that's the Machalikis. That's
Oh,
the
oh.
Machalikis. The Hayayim, Magavram says that you're not Yoitza. Abel Amar Hayayim Kach V'Kach V'Lema Lo Oimer Yatsi. He didn't say the word Lo Oimer to Yoitza. Today is this and this. Even though he didn't say Oimer, Shemeiker Hadin Ein Tzarech Loimer Klal Lo Oimer Shanogu Kach Levar Yofa B'Sfira Le'ez Davar Soifrim Ve'ein Ze Ma'akev Klal B'Diavad. Yesh Noegen Loimer Be'Oimer, instead of a Lamed they say with a Beis Be'Oimer. Ve'ein Shabbos Shum Nusach Ki Shneim L'Choinim. No one should change. Every nusach is correct. Yesh Noegen V'Tamei Yidu Alehem Loimer Loimer La'achmi Yavim Koidim In HaShuvis. And Hayoim Shmeni Yamim, they put in the insert the word Loimer middle. Loimer Sheheim Shavu Echad B'Yemechad. That's a Pikabala.
We said the Laoma, but the last.
Right. We say it at the end. When we say in halacha mitam hayidu alahem from reasons known to them, it means apikabala. There's some that have apikabala reasons to say loimer the middle, insert in the middle. We don't do that.
What's the word, when the English shouted?
Don't mess up. Don't confuse any nusach. They're both okay. Don't say, oh, you're doing wrong. You're doing wrong. Everyone can keep to the nusach. There is enough support and leaning for each nusach. Sivchas. Derech tzachas l'shein hakodesh loimer yamim. The way in Lashon Kodesh, the proper way to speak is to say yamim Lashon Rabim,
Like
a plural form, mishnayim ad asara, from 2 until 10. You say plural. Avo me'achad asar, from 11 on, yoimer hayoim, yoim Lashon Yachid. You say achad asar yoim. You don't say achad asar yamim. Shem asim. That's in Lashon Kodesh, the proper way. It's better to say the smaller number before the bigger number. We, in English, you say 21.
Right?
Lashon Kodesh,
Like
Yiddish
small number.
also.
in Yiddish also, mostly Yiddish, most places in Yiddish. Some
It's
don't.
made right.
No.
21,
27, 27, 27.
Oh. Yeah, most Yiddish, but there are some, I think, dialects of Yiddish, they do the opposite.
It
But
says the same thing. If you just say the number, tonight's number, without saying today, the word today.
Hayom.
If he says the word today, it's a machlokes, as you said.
no, here it says bevadai.
He says
Says the machlekes. Who's the other opinion?
yeah. He says it's a machlokes.
The Magen Avraham says it's no good. Who says he yaitze?
Says it, you'll see.
If it's a
One,
machlekes.
for example, says today is the 5th day. Even if he responds in the vernacular, it means in English. Right? Vernacular means what?
Yeah.
Right? He may have fulfilled his obligation.
If he said today.
Right. If he says today is for one, right?
Uh-huh.
Because you're counting any language, as long as you understand what he's saying. See the Mishnah Berurah. You see in 489 or 5. Therefore, he cannot say it with a bracha.
This is if he did say today. What happens if he
But he
didn't
should
say?
still count again.
What
He
is
still should count again, he tells.
it? Okay.
He still should count again, since many authorities hold that he did not fulfill his obligation.
This is when he does say hayyim. What happens when he doesn't say hayyim at all? Doesn't say today.
Just the number for
Just the
this.
number.
Right. He doesn't. He certainly did not fulfill his obligation.
Just like Dr. Rebbe, same thing.
He didn't say the right number.
I said the right number, but you did not say tonight. Today.
Can't remember what the value was.
If you don't say hayyim, bekitzer, if you don't say hayyim,
Ola Oimer.
You are not yoitze, you could say Sfiras Oimer with a bracha.
Ola
But
Oimer.
if you do say even in English today, then
Yeah.
you should say
Svira you could say in English. Svira in English is Svira. In English, you're yoitze.
And
And not only you're yoitze, if someone says Lashon Kodesh but doesn't know what they're saying, they're not yoitze. Svira is you have to know you're counting. If you don't know that you're counting, what you're counting, you're not yoitze. So you have to know.
the days and weeks like now, it's makes much easier because if we say both halakim, the shirk you can't get.
Yeah.
Right? Now that we push just days.
So Taiv Leim Mingen Hamot, Koidem Mingen Hamarube, Kegoin, thank you, Mingen, Echot ve'esim, v'le esim ve'echamed, v'le is Elu, in these countries, Shederech Lispa Min Hamot Koidem. That our style is that we say a smaller number first. But Mekayim is those places like the United States, Shederech Lispa Mingen Hamarube, Koidem, you could do the Sfira the way you
That's
like
how
to
it went in the Spirabak Siddur in English.
It's probably, and I wonder, Taka, what does it say in the English to do it? In my art scroll and the Sahas Siddur, right there over there on your right, you have a art school Siddur. What do they say for the? Do they write? Is it 1 in 20 days, or they say 21? I'm sure they say 21, like they say. It doesn't make sense in English to speak differently. Either way, you said, but it says over here that you could say it like your place. So what does he say? Yeah, 22 days, 21 days also there. Yeah, this is like this psak that minig hamakim is that way. Then you don't have to do it that way. It's just lashon kodesh. You do it this way.
It's not in the meaning they count in English.
But I think in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, how do they count?
Depends if it's teens or the other way.
Teens, what do they do? Is a small number, muat.
Yeah.
And after esrim,
That's the station.
Yeah.
it's first the bigger number.
31, 41.
Well, it was done with the design. They followed the American system. Done with the cars when they eliminated the language.
Uh-huh.
That's true.
They wanted to be west, but also went from Chinese.
Either way, you're yoitze. It's just a shaila of what's the tzachas haloshin. What's the appropriate way to talk in your language in your country. Tess. Shavua hu loshin zocher. Shavua is masculine language. You don't have an American idea of zacher and a keva, but in a lot of languages you have zacher and a keva, like Moshe Kodesh. L'chein yomer shvu echad, v'loi echas. Achas. With shvu sheni, the second week yomer, sheni. V'loi shtei. Shvu shlishi yomer shloisha, v'shalish, v'chein b'shar shuas, you say it all, lashon zach.
Make any difference?
Yaitse if you did the other way around. I thought yaitse either way. Huh? Are you talking about Davis? Can't hear. Mota lisper yud mota lisper chalash mevin. Any language you understand. Amam eni mevin alash sefer by afilu safer lashon hakodesh. Im eni mevinoi lo yatsa. The kivin in Yudea hamingins. It's kedai to know the mingin. Take a look at it. Ein zu svira klal. Heisnish svira. Yud alaf achas svira noigen loyme hiratzin shabara beis hamikdash. She'achshav ein on a soif and a zeichel hamikdash.
Why don't you say
Ve'ein besvira zu asiyas mitzvah klal. She'amitzvah lisper lo'omer. Achshav ein lo we don't have an omer. Lisper lo'i. Halo shachachavim tikkun lisper zeichel hamikdash. V'ich mispalon shabara beis hamikdash v'nekayim ha-mitzvah kitikuna. Yesh noigen mit ha'maydul ha'mapi kabbalah lo'omer achakach to say after the svira the mizmar holakim yichaneinu v'cheinu ana b'chayach and ibayna shalaylam,
That's what we.
which is based on the Arizal.
why don't you say l'shem yichud like you're not succeeding?
So that's not only a shala here by all the mitzvahs. Chabad doesn't say by any
Like
mitzvahs.
palace, you don't do l'shem.
No. Only once a day.
By Hanukkah candles. Yeah.
Why? So what? How do we get to
So the
do it?
Shem Echud that you do in the morning.
You don't say by. You don't say
Chakras, you don't-
Chabad misses out this feeling of kedusha. L'shem yichud, the Welt L'shem yichud. It's a feeling L'shem yichud. It's the ganze.
After writing.
Chabad is very cold in these areas. They're very kalt. But Meichen.
Over Hasidus, like the
Meichen. Focus on the mayach. So sometimes,
You know what the Rayat said about seltzer? When you about health, it's cute. He never saw seltzer in America. The Rayat, so he says it's a mismagish drink. It's a kalt, it's a kochzach.
And you know what the Ammonite, when they came to Israel, they call it Maim Koftzim. I don't know, with the Maim Koftzim, what?
Kalt, it's a kochzach.
yeah. Yesh oimrim. One of the Kotzker Svarim, I think it's Emes Yaakov, says there that there's a Chabad Chassid who came chanced in Kotzk. So the Kotzker Rebbe asked him, what do you think by Kriyashma, by Shem Echad? So he told him, he thinks deep meditation on Yichud Ilah, Yichud Tata, high levels of Achdus Hashem, So the Kotzker started to scheme of was mit the Puppik, meaning, you're thinking such high things, but what's going to be with, the guf? The guf has to be elevated, Yud Beis. Yesh oimrim shemuter levarich lisper ben hashmachis. You're allowed to count ben hashmachis even though it's not night. Afav yishu safek layla v'safek yoyim ha'avar. In kain heich yoyim ha'yoyim shnei yomim. How can you say 2 days? Lav dafke. Shema da'ina yom rishon ben hashmachis. Twilight time is a safek. We don't know the exact moment when things switch over. We call makim v'shasvira v'zman azem v'divrei soifrim. Safek did say lahakol, Safek did abban lekula. So I can get myself into a Safek. How are yishcholkan hazev ha'imrim? For the chatchila ein lahachnis atzmai lidei Safek. A person should not do that lachatchila. Ein echanam, if you did it, it's true. It's that you were yoytze, but not to do lachatchila because even a Safek did abban does not mean you go do it lachatchila. The ein lisper atzes come shalayla. V'radai. Geen oisen medaktikin. Medaktikin mitzvahs wait for tzitzit yechavim. Geen roy l'chol adam has really not only medaktikin do that. Reality, the second opinion has a good point. We don't l'chatzchila put ourselves in a suffix. When do we say these klal suffix that are minatayra l'chumra suffix that are l'kula? When I already have the suffix, but not supposed to create the suffix. Put myself in a situation of a suffix. L'chatzchila, you don't put yourself there. You have a suffix, okay? Safek derabban l'kul, it's a klal and Torah. But we call makim, even though it's right for everyone to do this, take upon themselves this, and that's what the medaktik and the missus do. Well, Maisa, the minig hamoin, most people don't do that. Achshak kisvari yishem lisben hashmashas. What are they doing? I don't know, but what are they doing? The various shuls that are davening early. Mincha Ma'ariv.
They don't have a skill.
No.
Go home.
No,
then
we count it later.
Yeah, they tell them to count it later.
No, on Shabbos.
They Shema
Yeah?
I showed the counts here before.
They do count it before.
Where?
They do ben hashmashas.
Yeah, I've been there.
The
shows.
pound?
No, I can't find it. But I've been there. Shows at the
They count regular like this. This is exactly what it says. Minig hamoin is that people rely.
in the house again.
I was probably concerned that maybe people will forget. They're going to come home. They're going to eat
Anyways,
supper.
that say Christmas, like Erev Shabbos, they say Christmas at home too.
Wait, you have to say the
But the
Krishna.
Christmas, it's too early.
Even by
Right? For Yishmael, so you have to say over.
You make some Krishna.
Yeah. It's too early. They always.
See, but
I've been to
Safari,
Chabad. They make
What do they
Christmas
do?
later.
if they make early mincha and Mari,
In Boston.
they count right there because a lot of people go home and they forget to count. So
Right.
they said, we count right now.
Yeah. Listen, Kriya Shema, a whole year Kriya Shema, people know that they have to say Kriya Shema again. They're used to this idea. And they say Kriya Shema before they go to sleep. So they get Sfira Saimer is a new thing. Someone's going to be at home to remember Sfira Saimer. I don't know. But before they should count, and if they could count with a condition. You're going to see over here. We're going to see actually right now what to do. Well, me, you could count and count with a condition that if I remember later on, I don't want this to be the Sfira. Later on, I'll say,
But you made it.
now,
Not gonna make another bracha.
look what he says. Me should write to the dactic, the list from Sesik Yichavim. Who mispal arbet you daven with a minyan and daven v'oid yoyim im atzibra mispal arbis im samach hashecha. And what are they doing? They are safe min hashmashas like the Hamayin Amdu. Toiv she is moim. best thing you should count with them. V'loy bracha. V'yachshe b'daite. Im eshkach l'sper b'layla. If you forget to count by night, Nisemech al svira zu latztei b'yidei chavasim. I'm relying on this svira.
Then make a bracha, but
V'loy eshkach b'layla. Haridaite yachshe shli latztei b'svira zu. I'm not going to have a mind. I don't want to be yaitza with the svira now. If I remember later, I'll say with a bracha properly. Sha'af loy mishmitzin sichas kavana latzvei yidei chavasai. We know the machlokes whether or not mitzvahs need to have kavana or not. And over here, you could taina that I didn't have kavana. So just because you didn't have kavana earlier on doesn't mean you're not yaitza. According to the opinion that you don't need kavana, b'diavad, I was yaitza the earlier sphira, even if I don't have kavana. So that explains that's not the tanai that you don't have kavana. The kavana is I befedish don't want to be yaitza. It's not pshat. I'm having in mind that I didn't have a mind to be yaitza. Them I ben shmashis. Pshat is I befedish. If I forget, if I remember later on, I don't want to be yaitza. You can't be forced to be yaitza something. Right. Mikol makim shemachad befedish shilatz b'nei chivase bevadi yaitza b'akparchei fish yisker alayla sovel isper alayla. Even though there's a klal that mitzvah sichus kavana, when you heard something, you're yaitz without kavana, true, according to that opinion, it's machlokes. But if even that opinion was masking, that if you had a mind, I'm not being yaitz with this. I'm not being yaitz, then you're not yaitz. You can't be forcefully made to be yaitz something. So this tanai, you're doing in a manner that if I don't remember later, I'm yaitz with what I'm counting now by ben shemashis. And if I remember later, I am befedish not being yaitza with what I'm doing now. This way you covered all your bases. You didn't have a mind. You didn't have a mind befedish not to be yaitza the svira. She's b'layla. Al suffer stam. When you came ben hashemash, you were davening with the minyan. You were davening early ma'ariv. You said with them Sviras Omer. But even though you did not make the bracha with them, he didn't say Amen after the Tzibur saying the bracha. It's too late. When you will remember at night to count, you can count. You should count. Because now it's after it says Kichavim. But don't say with a bracha. Why? Maybe it was already nightfall when you count the Ben Hashemashis. Sometime during Ben Hashemashis, it's night. So maybe when you had counted, it was night already. According to the opinion that says the mitzvahs don't need kavana, because remember, we're talking in the case you didn't make any conditions. You just followed everyone, but you didn't make a bracha. Not any condition, in this condition we said in mind. That's a problem, says Alter Rebbe. And now he says, there's a sheet which holds that mitzvahs need kavana. It's mefloikus and shas. Mitzvahs tzrichas kavana. So l'chor, according to them, I wasn't yoitza earlier because I didn't have any. I just stam counted without thinking anything. And I counted ben hashemashis. So it's still problematic. Svira today's days is midrabanan. And midrabanan, some say midrabanan. Everyone agrees that you don't need to have kavana. This whole machlekes and shas for the mitzvah tzrichas kavana not is lagabe deraisa. Gabe derabanan, some say that everyone is masking that you don't need kavana. So therefore, since Svira is only midrabanan, you count without any tanai. You just count to stam with everyone in the community when they were davening the shmashas. Then you could be your yaitz already. So you can't go count with a bracha. Furthermore, even if you didn't count with them, b'chalal ben hashmashas, you stood there and you didn't count with them. Sheshama hasvira min echad min hatzibur. Shesafre, you heard from one of the people there counting. You heard him counting. Well, in his skavan kalitzi, he had no kavanah to moitzi you. The gamhul in his skavan latzvishis, he had no kavanah to yoitzi from him. When you remember at night to count, you cannot count with a bracha. mitzvah, I didn't have kavana. Again, mitzvah saying tzrichas kavana for sure midrabanan. Even if you had a mind when you heard them counting, I'm not having a mind to be yotze because I'm going to be yotze later. I'm not having a mind to be yotze. That's not enough. Ein zeh klum. According to people, says mitzvah don't need kavana. Saying I'm not having kavana just means I'm not having kavana. Good, but you don't need to have. There's an opinion which says midrabana you don't need mitzvah, you don't need kavana.
Yes, you actually.
Ela came mechashiv ani miskaven shaloi latzizba.
Yeah, you have to make a one in the doctor.
Is that the same thing as not having kapana? Is it one of the
No.
It's a repair.
Is a kavana ani miskaven shaloi latzis
Ikavana.
or any miskaven latzis? Someone says I am not having kavana to be yotze, or says I am having kavana not to be yotze. Are you having a kavana not to be yotze, or are you just not having kavana? I'm not being mechavan to be yotze. Good, you're not having kavana. Shkoyach. Mitzvah saying tzrichas kavana, she yotze given. But if you say, I'm having kavana not to be yotze, different. The calls of ben hashmashis, we have to go to Ma'ariv now, but koidim ben hashmashis, ein minute klal whisper. Feel about a Shabbos, and Medina limit for the hours, it's a classical mishmash. Even at a Shabbos, people daven early. There's no minute to count when you daven before Shkia. And it's Sibur Sefer comments called Echad Echad Sefer Mebesi Shigi Azman. We'll talk about it later. So basically, the Kitzur Nimratz during Ben Hashmashes, many people have the minute to count Sfiras Omer with a brach. They are relying upon Safik that Rabbanan L'chatchila. You can do it at that time. However, there's another sheet that says no. L'chatchila, you're not supposed to put yourself in a makam a Safik, even by Safik that Rabbanan. And therefore, you should really wait till Tzvadei Laila Tzkichavim. And Medaktik and the mitzvahs do that. They wait. And Alter Rebbe says, really, it's right really for everyone, really. Not only just say, oh, Medaktik do it. Every person really should take upon himself this chumrah and wait Tzkichavim. And Lamaisi says what you see on the ground is that the minig hamoyin, most people are being lenient and relying on this svara, the shita. They're doing it. And then he gives various eitzes if you are davening early with such a minyan, and they're saying Sfiras Omer, he says it's best you should count with them, because you might forget later. So you should count with them during Ben Hashmashis, but you want to be medaktik and mitzvahs. You want to count by tzeis, what you should do. Count without a bracha. Make a tonight that if I remember later on, I'm befedish, I'm not being yoytze with this Sfira. Later on, I'm going to count with a bracha. But if I forget later, this is my Sfira Omer. But if you don't have this tonight, you're getting into problems because mitzvahs don't need kavana, and midrabanan at least they don't need kavana, and just by hearing the community, someone saying the sphere next to you can get you into problems unless you have a mind. So the best thing is to count and make this condition. However, the Alter Rebbe points out there is no minig to count sphere b'yoyim mabish when it's not yet after shkia. People that have a ma'ariv sometimes when it's fully light out. People daven like Rabbi Yehuda, daven an early Shabbos. Yeah. They don't. There's no minig to daven. If you did, I'll discuss next week. If you did happen to make such a mistake because it was a cloudy day, you thought it was shkia already, counted early. But l'maisa, there is no l'chatchila minig that you should go and count by day. Those people will tell you you have to wait later on to the neshmashes or tonight.
If you do count it every night, why don't you say halayla?
There's no such a thing as Laila. We count 49 days. Tisbur Chamishim Yom. It's a me'es leis. I don't know what it means. The question is, if you say tonight, I don't know what it would be. I always have this question.
What we count?
Usually someone say to you, what's a svira? He was probably going to answer back, tonight is a day. You might not say today is.
Right.
He was probably, even though the Lashon is Hayoim. I don't know if he yoytz or not for tonight. Maybe you can still count with a bracha.
Before, if you didn't mention the word the Yom or Omer, it's not the
Tonight could be. We had a discussion about it here in the past. I don't know. So Shaila comes up every year. Thank you everyone for joining via Zoom.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break for Ma'ariv and hopefully you'll join the Rav Shir tomorrow night.
It's not
Yes,
better.
I'll see you next week.
Just travel the minyan.